everyone, happy Halloween and welcome to a bonus video. That's right, this is a manga channel. I pretty much exclusively talk about manga, but I just gave you guys 3 reviews in a row. So, you know, give me a break here. Because, you know, I have a lot of other hobbies outside of manga, and one of those is, you know, reading, you know, actual books, you know, with actual stories. None of this picture shit. One of my favorite authors, of course, being Mr. King. Very, very iconic storyteller. If you've never read any of his books, you've at least heard of like at least a dozen of them. And I have read quite a few at this point. Now, not close to all of them, because the man is fucking insane and writes like 5 a year. But I've read enough that I feel pretty qualified to talk about which ones are my favorite. There is a link below to my Goodreads in case you're interested in seeing all of the books from King that I've read. But for now, we are just going to do a simple top 10 countdown. If you found this video just because you were looking for Stephen King content, welcome. I hope I can give you some insight into some of these stories that I love. And if you only watch this channel for manga and you're only interested in the manga, I hope I can convince you to expand your horizons a little bit with some of, you know, the most popular books ever made. At number 10, we have Firestarter. This, I feel like, is one of, out of all of King's early works, which are, you know, usually his most famous, his most acclaimed, I feel like Firestarter is the most underrated out of all of those. It's the story of Charlie, a young girl who develops pyrokinesis after her parents, you know, were part of these government experiments. She's become so powerful that the government is now tracking them down. Her and her dad are on the run, and, you know, wacky shit happens. And it's such an interesting and well-told and unique story. Well, it was unique for the time, because I'm sure that description made a few bells go off in your head. And that's because Firestarter is, I believe, one of King's most influential works, and a lot of people don't know it. But so many stories would not really exist the way they do today without Firestarter. And that's one of the reasons I think it just deserves so much credit. At number 9, we have It. This is probably King's most famous novel. I mean, everyone fucking knows Pennywise. And for good reason. It's a pretty damn good book. It's pretty thick, so it's a thick boy. But yeah, it's just a super interesting, well-told story. It follows this friend group who is haunted by this, you know, creature who can, you know, take the form of their fears, and has been killing children in their small hometown. It constantly jumps between the past and the present as we, you know, unravel these mysteries, make connections, and try to fight off this creature. It really shows off one of King's strengths, which is, you know, town building. As you know, the town of Derry here is fully realized, and there's a whole bunch of creepy shit going on there that makes things super interesting. Of course, this book is infamous for some, you know, which I have to say, not a fan of. I don't like it. And it's maybe one of the reasons why I don't rank it as highly as other people. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty small part of the book. Whatever. The whole thing is still pretty peak. At number 8, The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower. That's right, the 7th and final installment of King's epic fantasy series, The Dark Tower. Now, I think this might be my most polarizing placement on the list, because I have seen people who agree with me that this book is amazing, and I've seen people say it's one of the worst one King's has ever written. And I understand it, because this book does definitely not go the way you expect. We've been following these characters for so long through so many stories. You have this image in your head of where you want it all to end, and when that doesn't happen, it can be kind of disappointing. But I personally thought this book was mostly brilliant. It has it all. It has all these fantastical locations, fantastic action, the weirdest shit you've ever fucking read, and some great twists that throw the whole journey out of whack. I really loved it. And the very ending, I actually think it's really fitting. Some people will disagree. I don't know. Anyway, great fucking series. The movie is shit. At number 7, another one of King's most famous novels, The Shining. However, it may not be as famous as Stanley Kubrick's film, which is also great in its own right. But while it does mostly follow the story of the book, it is very different in terms of its presentation. The novel The Shining is very much a spooky ghost story, And it's a very, very damn good spooky ghost story. Of course, the story of Jack Torrance, who takes his family up to a hotel to take care of it during the winter. But uh-oh, the hotel's haunted, it's trying to possess everyone. This is a Stephen King novel. The atmosphere here is wonderful. When you're reading this, you really feel like you're locked away in this gigantic, empty hotel. Really creepy, some genuinely frightening moments here. And it, of course, introduces us to the main power of the Stephen King universe, The Shining, which has been present in so many of his novels. I haven't read Billy Summers yet, but like he's still using The Shining, and it's still very effective. But yeah, this is just a super, super solid entry. I know a lot of people like it even more than me. Yeah, good on them. Dr. Sleep is also pretty good, but I'm much more a fan of Mike Flanagan's film. At number 5, another one of King's early works that I don't think gets enough credit, The Dead Zone. Fuck, this is good. The story of Johnny Smith, and yes, they do make fun of his name, who suffers a serious head injury, and when he wakes up from a coma, realizes that he has developed psychic powers. And this is a very unique story because it's really multiple stories. We sort of just follow Johnny go about his life with these powers and how he uses them. Whether it's to, prevent people from falling victim to a disaster that he foresees, using his powers to help solve crimes. And of course the big conflict, which the end of the book focuses on that I won't spoil, which is really, really fascinating and makes you ask yourself a lot of questions. I really, really can't stress enough how much I love this book. Now, this is still a famous book. I mean, it is one of his 70s books. This is the real shit here. But I really think it deserves to be up there more in the conversations of his best books. The halfway point of the list now with my favorite of the Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass. Yeah, people have a hard time agreeing on, the quality order of the Dark Tower series. I think that's kind of a testament to how good it is. And I've seen all sorts of choices for the number 1 spot. However, I do feel like out of all of the lists I've seen, and I've seen a lot of Stephen King lists, Wizard and Glass seems to be the most popular choice for the best of the series. And for good reason, because it's fucking incredible. Which is weird, because while this is the longest Dark Tower book, it actually does the least to advance the story out of all of them. Because what Wizard and Glass actually is a backstory of our lead character, Roland. You see, for the first 3 volumes of the series, we keep getting glimpses and hints to what his past was like, but we never really get much elaboration because he doesn't really want to talk about it. But here, he's like to his friends, all right, man, we've been together long enough. It's time I finally tell you how fucked my life is. And yeah, most of this gigantic novel is just the story of Roland. It doesn't have a lot of the wacky, supernatural, universe-hopping stuff the Dark Tower is known for. It's mainly just a normal fantasy story. And it's really fucking good. Everything from the characters to the story to the twist. It's one of those stories where, you kind of know where stuff is going because you know how Roland ends up, but it still surprises you. Very, very good stuff. And while it doesn't move the overall story of the Dark Tower forward much, the few parts that do are extremely, extremely good. So, hell yeah, man. Now these next 4 should really need no introduction. They are all some of King's most famous work and his most acclaimed. Some would call me a normie for picking all of these. I would say, fuck you. I'm in the business of misery. Let's take it from the top. She's got a body like an hourglass, is sticking like this. Misery's so good. This is the shortest book on the list, huh? Yeah, spoilers, guys. I don't have Elevation in my top 3. Sorry about that, Elevation fans. But yeah, everyone knows Misery. Of course, made very, very famous by the fantastic film adaptation. A writer who gets injured and then taken in by a crazy fan who then, traps him and forces him to write a story that she wants. What's so great about Misery compared to all of these other books I talked about is that it's the first one that's not really supernatural in any way. Everyone in it is just normal. There's no ghosts. There's no shining. It's just a scary story about something that, while hopefully unlikely, could actually happen in real life. Like in The Shining, King just creates this great, great feeling of isolation, and it's very tense and scary. You never know what's going to happen. You really want this guy to figure out how to escape. It's so fucking brilliant. And with it being so short, I do think it's one of his more accessible novels. Read it, you clowns. At number 3, universally usually considered King's scariest novel, of course, The Eyes of the Dragon. I'm kidding, no it's not. Pet Sematary. Jesus fuck. This is a story so disturbing that King didn't actually publish it when he wrote it. He waited a bit because he was like, yeah, this is too fucked for people. And yeah, he was right. Of course, based off an incident that almost happened to his own child, it is a story about grief. And also dead things coming back to life. And why you shouldn't bury things on an ancient burial ground where dead things come back to life. It's a very famous story, a very, very scary premise that both dabbles in the supernatural and also, real life terrors, the fear of losing someone that you love and, what would happen, what would you do if it actually happened. God, it's fucking visceral though. Holy shit, some of these parts are really, really hard to read and very, very disturbing. To the point where I don't know if I would really recommend this to everyone, because some people might really be turned off by some of the subject matter in here. But if you're a true horror fan, this is it, man. This is the one you should be reading. Not Eyes of the Dragon, okay? That's like a baby book. This is the real shit. Top 2, baby. Top 2. You know what's something that's awesome? Vampires. And yes, I am actually talking about Twilight. Those movies are fucking entertaining as shit. If you have never watched Twilight, like the whole saga, get a bunch of friends together, get some drinks. It is awesome. Especially Breaking Dawn Part 2. I truly believe that movie is in the Room territory, where it's so shit that it's kind of brilliant. Anyway, number 2 is Salem's Lot. I fucking love Salem's Lot. Oh my god! This was King's second novel, or at least, second published novel, and it already felt like the work of a master. It's a classic vampire tale inspired, of course, by the works of Bram Stoker, Stephenie Meyer. It takes place in this small, quiet American town. Some new neighbors move in. They're a bit shady. What's going on here? And this is where King introduces us to his brilliant town building, which I, alluded to in It. This is where that trope was born. This is a slow burn of a book, where the first half is pretty much all set up, introducing us to the town of Jerusalem's Lot. We meet a ton of the people in this town. We learn about their lives and their struggles. Of course, there are some central ones that, are the main characters. But we get to know a lot of these people, and to some that may seem boring. Of course, there are a large portion of this book where, it's not much, it's just people going about their lives. But there are always these hints of horrifying shit happening that make you want to keep reading more. And once shit finally hits the fan in this book, holy fuck, is it intense? It makes all of that slow build up super, super worth it. And let's just say, I'm very, very glad that, this was not entirely the last we have seen of certain elements of this book. Some honorable mentions, of course, before we get to number 1. Stuff I haven't mentioned yet. The Outsider, that's pretty good. Revival's a freaky one. Later is really good. If you're a fan of it, read Later. Holy shit. Carrie, of course. Carrie's a classic. Alright, enough bullshit. Number 1, of course, goes to Cujo. Little puppy dog. The Stand. Man. Oh, man. Oh, The Stand, man. 1,150 pages of pure ecstasy. Yes, before the Dark Tower saga, this was King's magnum opus. This gigantic tome, this gigantic story. Pandemic that wipes out almost the entire population of the world, and there are only a few survivors left. And among these survivors, it of course quickly becomes a battle for their continued survival between good versus evil. Mother Abigail and the Man in Black. It's something else, man. It's something else. The first half of this book is just so brilliantly told, as we get to see so many different characters' points of views of the pandemic, how it all started, where they were when all of their loved ones were dying. Each scenario was similar, but also so different. It makes things very, very interesting. The length of this book might be a turnoff for some people, but with how many character points of views we have, it really, really benefits from the extra length, as none of these characters feel wasted like filler. They're all super well developed. You love the ones you're meant to love, you hate the ones you're meant to hate. And as they all start to come together, and the second half of the series really focuses on them rebuilding and functioning as a society in this, post Captain Trips world. And this is when, we start to see the scheming of the Man in Black, a character who has appeared in multiple King stories over the years. This was his introduction, and man, does he make an impression. Fuck. I know some people aren't too big on the ending. I personally really love it. I think it's really funny how, like, the last, 50 pages are after the climax, and it's just, characters walking. I just never wanted this to end, man. It was so fucking good. And, yeah, this might be my favorite book ever. If you could only read one King book, this is what I would recommend. I know it's his longest book, and I know that's not going to be easy for some people. But seriously, man. I lent this to my grandmother after I first read it, and she read it all in a week, so... So there you have it. Those are my favorite Stephen King novels. I hope it gave you a bit of an insight into the type of stuff I like to see from him. I still think he is producing some great stories to this day, and I hope we still get to see many, many more from him in the future. And I guess we'll be going back to manga now. Well, kind of. I got a High Guardian Spice review to do, I think. Oh, fuck. Thank you all so much for watching. If you are a fan of Stephen King, or, a brand new reader, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Have a happy Halloween, and, I don't know, watch something spooky tonight. Midnight Mass is really good. Well, watch that if you haven't.